Part 1. The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of golden sand under a vast starry sky. Emma sat cross-legged on the ground, her telescope pointed upward, searching for constellations she had memorized as childhood. She loved nights like this, quiet, peaceful, and full of mystery. The world felt so small compared to the infinite expanse above her. It was easy to forget everything else when she was out here, alone with the stars. Emma lived in a small town, surrounded by miles of open land. Most people found the isolation boring, but not her. She liked the quiet. Her days were spent working at the local library, shelving books and helping patrons find what they needed. At night, though, she became an explorer, not of Earth, but of the universe beyond it. Astronomy was more than just a hobby. It was her escape. That evening, as she adjusted the focus of her telescope, something unusual caught her eye. A faint light moved across the sky, too fast to be a satellite and too steady to be a shooting star. Curious, Emma leaned closer, trying to track its path. But before she could make sense of it, the light suddenly changed direction and began descending toward her. Her heart raced. Was it a plane, a meteor, or something else entirely? The light grew brighter, illuminating the desert around her. Emma shielded her eyes with one hand, squinting against the glare. Panic bubbled up inside her as she realized the object wasn't slowing down. Whatever it was coming straight for her. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing her backpack and notebook. Before she could run, the ground shook violently beneath her. Sand swirled into the air, stinging her skin. A deafening roar filled the night, drowning out even the sound of her own breathing. When the dust finally settled, Emma saw it, a massive metallic ship hovering just above the ground. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver, reflecting the stars above. Before she could react, a beam of light shot out from the ship, enveloping her in warmth. Her body froze, unable to move. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing she saw before blackness overtook her was a group of tall, insect-like creatures stepping out of the ship. Their eyes glowed red, and their movements were unnervingly precise. Ryan paced back and forth in front of his sister's abandoned car, his hands clenched into fists. He had been calling her nonstop for 2 days, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. When he drove out to the spot where she often camped, all he found was her vehicle parked haphazardly near the edge of the desert. Her telescope was still set up nearby, but there was no sign of Emma herself. "Something's wrong," Ryan muttered to himself, kicking at the dirt. "This isn't like her." He called the police, but they didn't seem particularly concerned. They told him Emma was probably fine, maybe stuck somewhere without cell service or taking a break from responsibility. Ryan knew better. Emma might have been quiet and reserved, but she was also responsible. She wouldn't just disappear without telling anyone. Frustrated and worried, Ryan decided to take matters into his own hands. He started retracing her steps, asking around town if anyone had seen her recently. Some mentioned seeing her heading toward the desert with her telescope. Others shrugged, saying they hadn't noticed anything unusual. No one seemed to think much of her absence, which only made Ryan angrier. That night, unable to sleep, Ryan returned to the desert. He brought a flashlight and searched the area where he'd found her car. The ground was disturbed, as if something heavy had landed there. There were strange marks in the sand along deep grooves that didn't match any vehicle tires he'd ever seen. And then there was the smell, a faint, metallic odor lingering in the air. Ryan crouched down, running his fingers over the grooves. His mind raced with possibilities. Had Emma been attacked by some kind of animal? Kidnapped? Or something worse? He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened to her was far stranger and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Meanwhile, light years away, Emma woke up in a dark, cold room. Her head throbbed and her limbs felt stiff, as if she'd been lying motionless for hours. Blinking against the dim light, She tried to sit up, but restraints held her wrists and ankles in place. Fear gripped her chest as she looked around. Her eyes adjusting to the gloom. The room was alien in every way. The walls pulsed faintly, glowing with an eerie blue light. Strange symbols etched into the surface shifted and changed, as if alive. Above her, mechanical arms hung from the ceiling, tipped with sharp instruments that gleamed menacingly. Emma's breath quickened. Where was she? What did these creatures want with her? A door slid open with a hiss, and several insectoid beings entered the room. They stood taller than humans, their bodies covered in chitinous armor. Their elongated heads tilted as they studied her, their glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness. One of them stepped forward, extending a claw-like appendage toward her forehead. Pain exploded in Emma's mind. Images flashed before her eyes, memories, thoughts, fears all ripped from her consciousness. She screamed, tears streaming down her face as the creature probed deeper. When it finally withdrew, she collapsed back onto the table, gasping for air. "What do you want from me?" She whispered hoarsely, her voice trembling. The creature didn't respond verbally. Instead, a thought forced its way into her mind, cold and calculating. "You are valuable. Your species holds potential." Emma shuddered, realizing that these beings, whatever they were, had no intention of letting her go. She was trapped, far from home, with no idea how to escape. All she could do was hope that someone, somewhere, would realize she was missing and come looking for her. Little did she know, her brother was already beginning the search. But neither of them could have guessed the lengths Ryan would go to bring her back or the cost of rescuing her from the clutches of an alien empire. End of Part 1. Part 2. Emma's days blurred together in a haze of fear and confusion. The alien creatures who called themselves the Kryn kept her locked in a sterile, cold chamber. Every few hours they came to take her away for more tests. She learned quickly that resistance was useless. Their strength far surpassed anything she had ever encountered, and their glowing red eyes seemed to pierce through her very soul. The experiments were brutal. They strapped her to tables and prodded her with sharp instruments, drawing blood and tissue samples without any explanation. Sometimes they placed strange helmets on her head, filling her mind with flashing lights and deafening sounds. Emma screamed until her throat was raw, but the Kryn showed no reaction. To them, she wasn't a person, she was just a specimen. Despite the pain, Emma tried to stay alert. She observed everything around her, memorizing details about the ship and its inhabitants. The walls of her cell glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat. The air smelled metallic, and the temperature never changed. It was always freezing. Outside her cell, the corridors bustled with activity. The Kryn moved with precision, their insect-like bodies clicking softly as they walked. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of other prisoners being dragged past her door. Some were human. Others looked like creatures from nightmares, with scales, fur, or too many eyes. One day, as Emma lay curled up on the hard floor of her cell, a new Kryn entered. Unlike the others, this one didn't wear the elaborate armor that marked the higher-ranking members of their kind. Its carapace was duller, scratched and worn, and it moved hesitantly, almost nervously. When it approached her cell, Emma instinctively backed away, pressing herself against the wall. "Do not fear," a voice whispered inside her mind. It wasn't loud or commanding like the others' thoughts. It was soft, tentative. Emma froze, staring at the creature. "I mean you no harm." For a moment, she thought she might be hallucinating. But then the Kryn pressed one clawed hand against the energy field guarding her cell. The barrier flickered briefly before stabilizing again. Emma realized this Kryn had deliberately disrupted the field, even if only for a second. "My name is Vrax," the voice continued. "I am different from them." Emma swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "What do you want?" she asked aloud, her voice trembling. Vrax glanced over its shoulder, checking to make sure no other Kryn were nearby. "You are not the first they have taken," it said. "Many have suffered under their rule. I do not agree with what they do." Emma frowned, unsure whether to trust this creature. "Why should I believe you?" she demanded. "You're one of them." "I am Kryn, yes," Vrax admitted. "But not all of us share their beliefs. There are those among us who question our leaders' actions. We see the suffering they cause, not just to your kind, but to countless others across the stars." Emma didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to lash out, to accuse Vrax of lying. But another part of her recognized the truth in its words. She had seen the way some Kryn treated the prisoners, with disgust, almost hatred. Yet others, like Vrax, seemed hesitant, even reluctant. Before she could say anything else, Vrax stepped back. "I cannot stay long," it warned. "If they discover I spoke to you—" It trailed off, shaking its head slightly. "Be strong, Emma. Help may come when you least expect it." With that, Vrax turned and hurried down the corridor, disappearing into the shadows. Emma stared after it, her mind racing. Was Vrax telling the truth? Could there really be dissent among the Kryn? And most importantly, could someone actually be coming to rescue her? Back on Earth, Ryan refused to give up. He spent every waking moment searching for clues about Emma's disappearance. With Alex's help, he scoured online forums and conspiracy websites, looking for anyone who claimed to have seen UFOs or experienced alien encounters. At first, it felt like chasing ghosts. Most stories were vague or unbelievable, filled with wild theories about government cover-ups and secret experiments. But then, Ryan stumbled upon something promising. A user named StarWatcher19 had posted detailed accounts of repeated sightings near the same desert where Emma vanished. According to the posts, strange ships often descended during the night, leaving behind scorched earth and terrified witnesses. StarWatcher19 claimed to have photographic evidence, but warned that sharing it publicly would put him in danger. Ryan reached out immediately, sending a private message explaining his situation. Days passed with no response, and Ryan began to lose hope. Then, late one evening, his phone buzzed with a notification. StarWatcher19 had replied. "I've seen things I can't explain," the message read. "And I think you're right, your sister might still be alive. Meet me tomorrow at sunset. Bring proof you're serious." Ryan showed the message to Alex, who raised an eyebrow. "Proof? What does that even mean?" "I don't care," Ryan said firmly. "If this guy knows something, anything, I'm going to find out." The next day, Ryan packed a folder containing photos of Emma, along with copies of police reports and maps of the area where her car was found. He drove to the designated meeting spot, a secluded overlook overlooking the desert, and waited anxiously. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a figure emerged from the shadows. StarWatcher19 turned out to be a middle-aged man named Greg, weary and nervous-looking, with a camera slung over his shoulder. He eyed Ryan suspiciously before speaking. "You really think your sister was taken by aliens?" "Yes," Ryan said without hesitation, "and I need your help to find her." Greg hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but you should know this. Goes deeper than you think. These aren't just random abductions. There's a pattern, a plan." Over the next hour, Greg shared everything he knew. He explained that the ships always appeared in remote locations, targeting individuals with specific traits, intelligence, curiosity, or unique skills. He believed the aliens were harvesting genetic material, using humans to enhance their own species. Greg also mentioned rumors of a massive alien empire spanning multiple star systems, ruled by a ruthless queen obsessed with survival at any cost. By the time they parted ways, Ryan's head spun with possibilities. If Greg was right, then Emma wasn't just a random victim, she had been chosen for a reason. And if that was true, rescuing her wouldn't be enough. Ryan would have to confront the entire alien empire. Determined to act, Ryan and Alex poured all their resources into building a spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. They scavenged parts from old satellites and military surplus stores, teaching themselves basic engineering along the way. It was exhausting work, but neither of them complained. Every bolt tightened, every circuit soldered, brought them one step closer to finding Emma. As weeks turned into months, Ryan began to change. The quiet, easygoing brother Emma once knew had transformed into someone driven by a singular purpose: revenge. He stopped sleeping properly, ate only when reminded, and rarely smiled. Alex tried to keep him grounded, reminding him that saving Emma was the priority, not destroying the Kryn. "You're not thinking clearly," Alex said one night as they worked late into the early hours. "This isn't just about getting her back anymore. You want to hurt them, to make them pay." Ryan paused, his hands gripping a wrench tightly. "They took my sister," he said quietly. "They tore her away from her life, from me. Why shouldn't I want to make them suffer?" "Because that's not who you are," Alex replied. "Emma wouldn't want you to become like them." For a moment, Ryan didn't respond. He stared at the half-finished ship, his jaw clenched. Finally, he let out a deep breath and nodded. "You're right," he admitted. "But I'm still going to get her back, no matter what it takes." Little did Ryan know, his journey was only beginning. The Kryn were far more powerful and far more dangerous than he could have imagined. And while his determination burned brightly, it remained to be seen whether it would lead him to salvation or destruction. End of Part 2. Part 3. The spacecraft stood in the middle of an abandoned warehouse, its sleek metallic frame glinting faintly under the flickering fluorescent lights. Ryan and Alex had spent months building it from scraps and stolen parts, piecing together something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie rather than reality. They called it the Wanderer, a name chosen by Alex because it sounded hopeful. Hope was something they desperately needed. Ryan ran his hand along the hull, checking for dents or loose panels. He wasn't an engineer, but he'd learned enough to know what might hold together during a trip through space and what wouldn't. Every bolt mattered. Every wire had to be perfect. One mistake could mean death, not just for him, but for Emma if she was still alive. Alex stood nearby, holding a clipboard with notes scribbled on it. "Fuel systems are good," he said, tapping the paper. "Life support is questionable, but it'll work for now. Navigation's tricky, though. You sure you can handle flying this thing?" Ryan shrugged, trying to sound confident. "I've been practicing on simulators online. It's not rocket science." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Actually, it kind of is." Ryan forced a smile, though his stomach churned with nerves. He didn't have time to second-guess himself. Every day they delayed meant another day Emma was trapped or worse. The thought kept him moving forward, even when doubt crept in. Their first test flight happened late at night, far away from prying eyes. Ryan climbed into the cockpit, adjusting the seat to fit his tall frame. Alex handed him a headset and gave him one last thumbs up before stepping back. "Don't crash," he joked, though there was real concern in his voice. Ryan nodded, gripping the controls tightly. His heart raced as he powered up the engines. The ship hummed to life, vibrating beneath his feet. For a moment, everything felt surreal, like he was playing pretend. Then the engines roared, and the Wanderer lifted off the ground. It was clumsy at first. Ryan struggled to keep the ship steady, veering sideways more than once. But after a few minutes, he began to get the hang of it. The controls responded better than he expected, and soon he was soaring above the desert, the world shrinking below him. Alex watched from the ground, shielding his eyes against the light of the engines. When Ryan finally landed, both men let out sighs of relief. "You're getting better," Alex admitted grudgingly. "Still needs work, but not bad." Ryan grinned, feeling a spark of pride. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to believe they might actually pull this off. A week later, they were ready to leave Earth behind. Supplies were packed, coordinates programmed, and final checks completed. As they prepared to board, Ryan hesitated, staring up at the stars. What lay beyond them? Would they find Emma? Or would they meet the same fate she had? "Hey, Alex," sighed, clapping him on the shoulder. "We'll bring her home." "I promise." Ryan nodded, swallowing hard. "Let's go." They launched into the night sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. The view from space took their breath away. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, brighter and clearer than anything they'd ever seen. Below them, Earth looked small and fragile, a blue-green marble floating in the vastness of the universe. For hours, they traveled in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Then, without warning, alarms blared throughout the ship. "What's happening?" Ryan shouted, scrambling to check the monitors. Alex pointed at a flashing red dot on the navigation screen. "Something's out there, and it's heading straight for us." Before either of them could react, a massive alien vessel appeared in front of them. Its shape was jagged and menacing, like a predator poised to strike. Ryan's blood ran cold. "Are those Kryn ships?" "I think so," Alex replied grimly. "Hold on." The alien ship fired a warning shot, narrowly missing the Wanderer. Ryan yanked the controls, dodging left and right as more blasts streaked past them. The smaller ship shook violently, alarms wailing. "We can't fight them," Alex yelled. Over the noise, "We need to run." Ryan gritted his teeth, pushing the engines to their limit. The Wanderer accelerated, weaving between asteroids and debris in an attempt to lose their pursuers. But the Kryn ship was faster, closing the gap with terrifying speed. Just when it seemed hopeless, a voice crackled over the comm system. "Human vessel, identify yourself." Ryan exchanged a glance with Alex. "What do we do?" he whispered. "Answer them," Alex urged. "Maybe we can talk our way out of this." Taking a deep breath, Ryan pressed the transmit button. "This is the Wanderer. We're peaceful travelers. Please don't fire." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, colder and more commanding. "You are trespassing in restricted space. Prepare to be boarded." Ryan's mind raced. If they were captured, they'd never reach Emma. Desperation bubbled inside him. "No," he shouted into the mic. "We're looking for someone, a human woman taken by your people. Her name is Emma." Another pause. This time, the response came not as words, but as actions. The Kryn ship slowed, hovering ominously nearby. A smaller craft detached from the main vessel and approached the Wanderer. "They're sending someone over," Alex said nervously. "What now?" Ryan clenched his fists. "We wait." Minutes later, the airlock hissed open, and a figure stepped aboard. To their surprise, it wasn't a Kryn warrior, it was a human woman. She wore tattered clothes and carried a blaster rifle slung over her shoulder. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy braid, and her sharp green eyes scanned the interior of the ship suspiciously. "Who are you?" she demanded, pointing the rifle at Ryan. "My name's Ryan," he said quickly, raising his hands. "This is Alex. We're looking for my sister Emma. She was abducted by the Kryn." The woman lowered her weapon slightly, studying them. "Emma, huh? You're lucky I found you. Those Kryn patrols don't take prisoners, they vaporize anything that moves." Ryan stepped closer, urgency in his voice. "Do you know where they might have taken her? Can you help us?" The woman smirked, holstering her rifle. "Name's Zoe. I'm a traitor, not a hero. But yeah, I know about the Kryn, and if you're dumb enough to chase after them, I'll tag along for a price." "What price?" Alex asked cautiously. Zoe crossed her arms. "Safe passage off this rock." She jerked her thumb toward the Kryn ship outside. "I've got enemies everywhere, including them. You get me out of here, and I'll guide you to their homeworld." Ryan hesitated. Trusting a stranger felt risky, especially one as rough-edged as Zoe, but they didn't have much choice. Without her knowledge, they'd never make it to Zethera, the Kryn capital planet. "Deal," Ryan said finally. "But if you double-cross us, you're on your own." Zoe grinned. "Fair enough. Now buckle up, boys. We've got a long ride." Ahead, as the Wanderer sped away from the Kryn patrol, Zoe explained what she knew about Zethera. The planet was heavily fortified, surrounded by fleets of warships and orbital defenses. Getting close would be nearly impossible, let alone landing safely. "But there's a way in," Zoe continued. "Smugglers use old mining tunnels to sneak past the patrols. Not exactly safe, but it's our best shot." Ryan listened intently, committing every detail to memory. Each piece of information brought him closer to Emma and to confronting the monsters who had taken her dot as they traveled deeper into space. Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this journey would change him forever. He'd started out driven by love for his sister, but now revenge burned just as fiercely in his chest. The Kryn had hurt Emma, destroyed lives, and enslaved countless beings across the galaxy. If Ryan had the chance to stop them, he would take it, even if it cost him everything. Little did he know, the hardest choices were yet to come. End of Part 3. Part 4. The journey to Zethera was long and tense. Inside the Wanderer, the air felt heavy with anticipation. Ryan spent most of his time studying maps and coordinates Zoe had provided, memorizing every detail about the smugglers' tunnels and hidden routes into the Kryn capital. Alex worked tirelessly to keep the ship running smoothly, patching up minor malfunctions and making sure their life support systems didn't fail. Meanwhile, Zoe kept to herself, sharpening her weapons or staring out the viewport at the endless expanse of Starzot. Despite their shared goal, there was an unspoken distance between them. Ryan trusted Zoe only because he had no other choice. Her confidence bordered on arrogance, and her motives remained unclear. Was she really helping them out of kindness, or did she have her own agenda? Alex seemed to share Ryan's doubts, but said little, focusing instead on keeping the peace. One evening, as they drifted through a quiet sector of space, Zoe broke the silence. "You know," she began, leaning back in her seat, "the Kryn aren't just some random alien empire. They've been around for centuries, conquering worlds and wiping out anyone who gets in their way." Ryan glanced at her, his expression grim. "We figured that much." Zoe shook her head. "No, you don't get it. This isn't just about power or resources. The Kryn believe they're superior like gods among insects. Every species they enslave is seen as nothing more than tools to help them survive. Genetic experiments, forced labor, mass extermination. They do whatever it takes to stay on top." Alex frowned. "Why hasn't anyone stopped them?" "Because they're too strong," Zoe replied bluntly. "Their technology is light years ahead of anything humans have ever built. And their armies? Endless. Most civilizations surrender before the fighting even starts." Ryan clenched his fists. "Not this time." Zoe smirked, though there was no humor in it. "Good luck with that. Just remember, you're not just going up against soldiers. You're dealing with an entire system designed to crush hope." Days later, they approached Zethera. The planet loomed ahead, its surface covered in sprawling cities made of black metal that shimmered like oil under the dim light of its sun. Massive warships orbited the atmosphere, their weapons trained on any vessel that dared come close. Ryan's heart sank as he realized how impossible their mission truly was. "We'll never get past those defenses," Alex muttered, staring at the monitors. Zoe leaned forward, tapping a spot on the navigation screen. "That's why we're using the tunnels. Stick to the plan, and we'll slip right under their noses." Ryan nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. He adjusted the controls, steering the Wanderer toward a cluster of asteroids near the edge of the planet's gravity well. According to Zoe, the smugglers' tunnels were hidden within the largest asteroid, shielded from Kryn sensors by layers of rock and debris. As they entered the asteroid field, tension filled the cockpit. Every movement felt deliberate, every decision critical. Ryan guided the ship carefully, avoiding collisions while keeping an eye on the scanners for signs of patrols. Suddenly, a warning flashed on the screen. A Kryn drone emerged from behind a nearby asteroid. Scanning the area. "Hold your breath," Zoe whispered, gripping the armrests of her seat. Ryan slowed the ship, letting the drone pass without detecting them. When it finally disappeared into the darkness, they all let out shaky sighs of relief. "That was too close," Alex said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Welcome to my world," Zoe replied dryly. They reached the designated asteroid moments later. Following Zoe's instructions, Ryan maneuvered the Wanderer into a narrow crevice leading to the smuggler's tunnel entrance. The passage was tight, forcing them to fly slowly and carefully. The walls scraped against the hull, sending shivers down Ryan's spine. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground cavern. Lights flickered along the ceiling, illuminating rows of abandoned ships and equipment left behind by smugglers. Zoe directed Ryan to land near a stack of crates, explaining that they'd need to travel the rest of the way on foot. Once outside, the group suited up in stolen Kryn armor Zoe had acquired during her years as a trader. The bulky suits were uncomfortable and awkward, but they provided camouflage. If they were careful, they could blend in with the Kryn patrols guarding the tunnels. "This is insane," Alex muttered as they adjusted their helmets. "What if someone recognizes us?" "They won't," Zoe assured him. "Just keep your head down and act like you belong. Trust me, I've done this before." Ryan didn't argue. He focused on staying calm, reminding himself why they were here. Emma was waiting somewhere on this planet, enduring horrors he couldn't imagine. He wouldn't let fear stop him now. The tunnels twisted and turned, leading deeper into the planet's core. Along the way, they encountered several groups of Kryn soldiers. Each time, Zoe took the lead, speaking in gruff tones that mimicked the aliens' guttural language. Somehow it worked. They passed through checkpoints without drawing suspicion. After hours of walking, they reached the end of the tunnel. A massive door blocked their path, guarded by two towering Kryn warriors. Zoe stepped forward, pulling out a small device from her belt. She attached it to the control panel beside the door and pressed a button. Sparks flew as the mechanism short-circuited, and the door slid open with a loud hiss. Beyond it lay the city, the heart of the Kryn Empire. Towering spires stretched toward the sky, their surfaces etched with glowing runes. Streets teemed with activity, filled with Kryn soldiers and enslaved beings from countless species. The sight made Ryan's blood boil. These creatures weren't just invaders. They were oppressors, ruling through fear and cruelty. "This is it," Zoe said quietly. "If your sister's here, she'd be in one of the central facilities. That's where they conduct their experiments." Ryan nodded, determination hardening his features. "Let's find her." As they moved through the city, Ryan noticed something odd. Some of the enslaved beings stared at them, not with fear, but with curiosity. One creature, a reptilian humanoid with shimmering scales, caught his eye and subtly gestured toward a nearby alley. Ryan hesitated, unsure whether to trust the stranger. But something in the creature's gaze told him it no harm. He nudged Zoe and pointed. "What about that?" he whispered. Zoe followed his gaze and frowned. "Could be a trap, or it could be useful. Either way, we don't have time to waste." Ryan made up his mind. "I'm checking it out." Before Zoe could protest, he slipped away from the group and approached the alley. The reptilian creature watched him approach, then ducked further into the shadows. Ryan followed cautiously, his hand resting on the blaster holstered at his side. When he reached the creature, it spoke in broken English. "You human?" "Yes," Ryan replied, lowering his weapon slightly. "What do you want?" The creature glanced over its shoulder, ensuring no one was listening. Kryn, cruel. Take many, hurt many. We fight secretly. Rayan's eyes widened. You're rebelling? The creature nodded. Join us. Help free slaves. Destroy Kryn. For a moment, Ryan considered the offer. Could these rebels help him rescue Emma? Would joining them give him the strength to take down the entire empire? But then he remembered Zoe's warning. The Kryn were too powerful, their grip too tight. Even with allies, victory seemed impossible. His priority had to be saving Emma, not starting a war. I can't, Ryan said finally. Not yet. My sister comes first. The creature studied him for a moment, then nodded. Find her, then return. Together, we change fate. With that, it vanished into the shadows, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. As he rejoined Zoe and Alex, he couldn't shake the feeling that the rebellion might hold the key to stopping the Kryn once and for all. But for now, his focus remained on Emma. Revenge could wait. End of Part 4. Part 5. The trio moved cautiously through the labyrinthine streets of the Kryn capital, sticking to shadows and avoiding patrols. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of their mission pressed down on them with every passing moment. Ryan's mind raced with thoughts of Emma, where she might be, what they were doing to her, whether she was still alive. He pushed those fears aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. Zoe led the way, her knowledge of smuggling routes proving invaluable. She navigated the group through back alleys and hidden passages, areas that even the Kryn seemed to overlook. The city itself was a maze of towering spires and grimy underpasses, its beauty overshadowed by the oppressive presence of the alien empire. Enslaved beings shuffled along the main roads, their eyes hollow and defeated. Ryan clenched his fists. At the sight, anger simmering beneath his determination. This is it, Zoe whispered, stopping near a massive structure surrounded by high walls and armed guards. Central facility. If your sister's here, this is where she be. Ryan studied the building, his heart pounding. It was heavily fortified, with energy shields guarding the entrances and surveillance drones patrolling the perimeter. Breaking in wouldn't be easy, but staying out wasn't an option. We need a distraction, Alex said quietly, glancing around nervously. Something big enough to draw the guards away. Zoe smirked, pulling a small device from her belt. Leave that to me. While Ryan and Alex waited in the shadows, Zoe crept closer to the facility's outer wall. She planted the device, a crude but effective explosive, and activated it before slipping back into hiding. Moments later, a deafening explosion rocked the area, sending chunks of debris flying into the air. Alarms blared as Kryn soldiers rushed toward the source of the blast, leaving the main entrance temporarily unguarded. Now! Zoe hissed. Motioning for Ryan and Alex to follow her, they sprinted across the open ground, dodging falling rubble and keeping low to avoid detection. As they reached the entrance, Ryan noticed something strange. One of the guards lingered behind, watching them with suspicion. Before he could react, the guard raised its weapon, pointing it directly at them. Freeze! Zoe shouted, raising her hands. She stepped forward, speaking rapidly in the guttural language of the Kryn. To Ryan's surprise, the guard hesitated, lowering its weapon slightly. What did you say? Ryan asked, keeping his voice low. I told him we're reinforcements, Zoe replied, flashing a quick grin. Let's hope he buys it. The guard nodded stiffly, stepping aside to let them pass. Ryan exchanged a glance with Alex, both of them silently marveling at Zoe's cunning. They hurried inside, their hearts racing as they entered the belly of the beast. Inside the facility, the air was cold and sterile, filled with the hum of machinery and the faint scent of antiseptic. Corridors stretched in every direction, lined with doors marked with glowing symbols Ryan couldn't understand. Zoe gestured for them to split up, each taking a different section to search for Emma. Ryan moved quickly, his pulse hammering in his ears. Every door he passed made him pause, wondering if Emma was behind it. He tried several handles, only to find most of them locked. Frustration bubbled inside him, but he forced himself to stay calm. Losing control now would mean failure, not just for him, but for Emma. Finally, he found a door that opened. Inside, rows of glass pods lined the walls, each containing a motionless figure suspended in greenish fluid. Ryan's stomach churned as he realized what he was looking at. Prisoners. Preserved like trophies. Some were human. Others were alien species he'd never seen before. None of them moved. Then, near the back of the room, he saw her. Emma. She floated lifelessly in one of the pods, her face pale and expressionless. Tubes connected to her arms and chest, feeding her body nutrients and chemicals. Tears welled in Ryan's eyes as he approached, pressing his hand against the glass. "Emma," he whispered hoarsely. "I'm here." He searched frantically for a way to release her, finding a control panel nearby. His fingers trembled as he tapped at the buttons, unsure which ones would unlock the pod without harming her. Just as he succeeded, alarms began wailing throughout. "The facility, they know we're here," Alex shouted, bursting into the room. Behind him, Kryn soldiers poured into the corridor, weapons drawn. "Go," Zoe yelled, appearing at the doorway. "I'll hold them off." Ryan hesitated, torn between gratitude and guilt. "We can't just leave you. You don't have a choice." Zoe snapped, firing her blaster at the approaching Kryn. "Get your sister out of here." With no time to argue, Ryan scooped Emma into his arms and followed Alex down the hallway. Her body felt unnaturally light, fragile even, and he cradled her protectively as they ran. Behind them, the sound of gunfire echoed through the corridors, mingling with Zoe's defiant shouts, reaching. The exit proved harder than expected. Kryn reinforcements flooded the facility, cutting off their escape route. Ryan and Alex ducked into a side room, barricading the door with whatever furniture they could find. Ryan laid Emma gently on the floor, checking her vitals. She was breathing, though barely, and her skin was icy to the touch. "She needs medical attention," Alex said urgently. "We can't stay here." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. "We'll make it out." "We have to." As if in answer to his words, a loud crash came from outside the room. The barricade shook as Kryn soldiers pounded against it, trying to break through. Ryan grabbed his blaster, ready to fight if necessary, but then a familiar voice crackled. Over the comm system, "Ryan, Alex, this way." It was Vrax, the sympathetic Kryn who had spoken to Emma earlier. Standing at the far end of the corridor, he gestured for them to follow him. Without hesitation, Ryan picked Emma up again and ran toward the alien, trusting him despite everything. Vrax led them through a series of maintenance tunnels, bypassing the worst of the chaos. Along the way, he explained that the rebellion among the Kryn was growing stronger, fueled by dissenters like himself who opposed their leader's cruelty. "Your arrival has given us hope," he said softly. "But I cannot protect you forever. You must leave now." When they reached a service hatch leading outside, Vrax turned to face them. "Take this." He handed Ryan a small device. "It will disable their tracking systems long enough for you to escape." Ryan stared at him, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply. "For everything." Vrax nodded, his glowing red eyes filled with sadness. "Good luck, humans. May your path lead to justice." With that, he disappeared back into the tunnels, leaving Ryan, Alex, and Emma alone once more. They climbed out of the hatch and sprinted toward the Wanderer, which Zoe had somehow managed to bring close enough for a quick getaway. As they lifted off, Ryan looked back at the burning facility, smoke rising into the sky. Zoe sat slumped in the co-pilot's seat, battered but alive. She gave him a weak smile. "Told you I'd get you out." Ryan didn't respond. Instead, he focused on Emma, holding her hand as the ship soared into space. For the first time since her abduction, he allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope, but the battle wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. End of Part 5. Part 6. The escape from Zithera felt like a miracle, but Ryan knew it wasn't over. Emma lay unconscious in the medical bay of the Wanderer, her body weak and fragile after months of captivity. Alex worked tirelessly to stabilize her, using whatever makeshift supplies they had on board. He cleaned her wounds, administered fluids, and monitored her vitals. His hands steady, despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "She's stable for now," Alex said finally, stepping back from the bed. "But she needs real medical care something. We can't give her here." Ryan nodded, his eyes fixed on his sister. Her pale face was a stark reminder of everything she'd endured. Guilt gnawed at him. He should have found her sooner. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay focused. They couldn't afford mistakes, not now. Zoe sat nearby, nursing a bruised arm and sipping water from a canteen. Despite her injuries, she seemed oddly calm, almost detached. Ryan glanced at her, suspicion creeping into his thoughts. She'd saved their lives multiple times during the mission, but something about her still didn't sit right. Why did? "You help us?" Ryan asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Zoe raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard by the question. "You think I'm some kind of saint? I told you I wanted safe passage out of there." Ryan shook his head. "That's not all. You knew too much about the Kryn, their defenses, their facilities, even the rebels. Who are you really working for?" For a moment, Zoe didn't respond. Then she sighed, setting the canteen down. "Fine, you want the truth? I've been trading with the Kryn for years. Information, weapons, tech, you name it. They don't trust me, but they tolerate me because I'm useful." "So you're a double agent," Alex interjected, frowning. Zoe smirked. "Not exactly. I play both sides. The Kryn pay me to smuggle goods, and the rebels pay me to sabotage shipments. It's a dangerous game, but it keeps me alive." Ryan's jaw tightened. "And what happens when one side finds out?" "They kill me," Zoe replied bluntly. "Which is why I need you two to keep your mouths shut, if word gets back to them." She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Ryan studied her carefully, trying to decide whether to believe her. Part of him wanted to throw her out of the ship right then and there. But another part recognized that she'd risked her life to help them, and they owed her for that. "We'll keep your secret," Ryan said finally. "For now. But if you betray us, I won't hesitate to leave you behind." Zoe nodded, seemingly satisfied with the arrangement. "Fair enough." Hours later, as they drifted through space, Emma began to stir. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing dazed, unfocused eyes. Ryan rushed to her side, gripping her hand tightly. "Emma? Can you hear me?" Her lips moved, forming words too faint to understand. Ryan leaned closer, straining to catch what she was saying. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe." Now Emma blinked slowly, her gaze locking onto his face. For a moment, recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by tears. "Ryan," she murmured hoarsely, "you came for me." "I promised I would," Ryan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry it took so long." Emma tried to sit up, but her body protested, sending waves of pain through her frail frame. Alex gently pushed her back down, offering a reassuring smile. "Take it easy. You've been through a lot." As Emma drifted back into sleep, Ryan felt a surge of determination. They had rescued her, but the fight wasn't over. The Kryn still ruled Zithera with an iron grip, enslaving countless beings and spreading terror across the galaxy. Ryan couldn't let them continue, not after everything they'd done. Later that night, Ryan called a meeting in the cockpit. Zoe, Alex, and Emma, all awake, but still weak, gathered around as he laid out his plan. "We can't just run away. Ryan began, his tone firm. The Kryn will hunt us down eventually. And even if they don't, they'll keep doing what they've always done, hurting innocent people. We have to stop them. Alex frowned. How? Their army is huge, and their technology is way beyond ours. We barely made it out alive last time. We hit them where it hurts, Ryan explained. Their power source. Without energy, their entire empire collapses. Zoe crossed her arms, skeptical. You're talking about taking down their central grid. That's suicide. It's risky, yeah, Ryan admitted. But it's possible. Vrax gave us that device. It disables their tracking systems. We use it to sneak back onto Zethera and plant explosives in the core facility. One blast and we cripple their whole operation. Emma spoke up weakly, her voice trembling. Ryan, you can't. It's too dangerous. I have to, Ryan replied, looking at her. They hurt you. They hurt everyone. I won't let them keep getting away with it. Emma opened her mouth to argue, but Zoe interrupted. He's right. As much as I hate to admit it, this might be our only shot. But we'll need more than guts. We'll need a plan. Together, they spent the next several hours mapping out every detail. Using stolen schematics of the Kryn capital, they identified the location of the central power grid and plotted a route to reach it undetected. Zoe suggested using the same smuggling tunnels they'd escaped through before, reasoning that the Kryn wouldn't expect anyone to return so soon. We'll split up once we're inside, Ryan decided. Zoe and I will handle the explosives, while Alex stays with Emma to protect her. If anything goes wrong, you get her out of there. No, Emma protested weakly. I'm coming with you. Ryan shook his head firmly. You're in no condition to fight. This isn't negotiable. Emma glared at him, frustration burning in her eyes, but she didn't argue further. Instead, she leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes as though trying to block out the argument. When they reached Zethera again, the atmosphere aboard the Wanderer was tense. Everyone knew the stakes. Failure meant death for them, and possibly for countless others. As they descended into the asteroid field, hiding the smugglers' tunnels, Ryan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. Once inside the tunnels, they moved quickly, sticking to the shadows and avoiding patrols. The journey felt eerily familiar, yet heavier somehow, as if the weight of their mission pressed down on each step. When they emerged into the city, Zoe led the way, guiding them toward the central facility housing the power grid. Reaching the building proved harder than expected. Kryn soldiers patrolled the area in greater numbers than before, likely heightened security after their previous infiltration. Ryan and Zoe exchanged nervous glances but pressed on, relying on stealth and quick reflexes to avoid detection. Finally, they reached the entrance. Zoe disabled the lock with a small hacking tool, and they slipped inside. The corridors were eerily quiet, the hum of machinery filling the air. They followed the map, navigating deeper into the facility until they reached the power core. Massive chamber filled with glowing conduits and pulsing energy fields. This is it, Zoe whispered, pulling out the explosives. Set these charges, and we're done. Ryan nodded, moving to place the devices strategically around the room. Just as he finished arming the last one, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, illuminating the chamber in harsh bursts. They know we're here. Alex shouted over the comm system. Get out now. Ryan and Zoe sprinted toward the exit, but Kryn soldiers blocked their path. Blaster fire erupted, forcing them to take cover behind a stack of crates. Zoe returned fire, her aim deadly accurate, but the odds were stacked against them. We can't hold them off forever. Zoe yelled, reloading her weapon. Ryan glanced at the timer on the explosives. 30 seconds left. We don't have to, he replied grimly. Just give me a clear shot to the door. Zoe nodded, firing wildly to create a distraction. Rand seized the opportunity, bolting toward the exit. Behind him, Zoe covered their retreat, her movements fluid and precise. As they reached the doorway, she hesitated, turning back to face the soldiers. "Go," she shouted. "I'll hold them off." Ryan froze, torn between gratitude and guilt. "Zoe, don't argue with me," she snapped, firing another round. "Save your sister." End this. With no time to waste, Ryan ran, leaving Zoe behind. Tears blurred his vision as he rejoined Alex and Emma outside, the countdown ticking down in his mind. Seconds later, a deafening explosion rocked the facility, sending shockwaves rippling through the city. The power grid was gone. As they fled Zithera, Ryan looked back at the burning ruins, his heart heavy with conflicting emotions. They had won, but at what cost? End of Part 6. Part 7. The explosion lit up the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the Kryn capital. From their vantage point in the Wanderer, Ryan, Alex, and Emma watched as chaos unfolded below. Power grids failed one after another, plunging entire sections of the city into darkness. The once mighty spires that dominated the skyline now stood like lifeless skeletons against the blackened horizon. Alarms blared across Zithera, but without power, the Kryn's defenses crumbled. Ryan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. He had done it. He'd struck a crippling blow to the empire that had taken his sister and countless others. But instead of feeling triumphant, he felt hollow. Zoe's sacrifice weighed heavily on him. She had stayed behind to ensure their escape, buying them precious seconds with her courage and skill. Her final words echoed in his mind. Save your sister. End this. Emma sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but resolute. She hadn't spoken much since they left the facility, though her eyes darted toward the viewport repeatedly, as if searching for something or someone. Ryan couldn't blame her. They had all lost pieces of themselves during this mission. Some losses were harder to bear than others. Alex broke the silence first. "We need to get out of here," he said quietly, checking the navigation screen. "Their ships will regroup soon. If we're still in range when they do." Ryan nodded, snapping out of his thoughts. "You're right. Let's go." He powered up the engines, steering the Wanderer away from the planet's surface. As they ascended, debris from the destroyed facility rained down like fiery meteors, crashing into the already crumbling city below. The sight was both horrifying and awe-inspiring, a testament to the fragility of even the most powerful empires. But Ryan knew their victory came at a price. The Kryn weren't defeated, they were wounded. And wounded predators could be more dangerous than ever. Hours later, as they drifted through space, the adrenaline began to wear off. Exhaustion settled over the group like a heavy fog. Emma finally spoke, her voice soft and hesitant. "Do you think she made it out?" Ryan hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted. "She gave us a chance to finish what we started. That's enough for me." Emma looked down at her hands, her expression unreadable. "It doesn't feel like enough." Number one responded. What could they say? Zoe's bravery had saved them, but it also left a void none of them could fill. Ryan tried to focus on the bigger picture, the enslaved beings who might now have a fighting chance at freedom, but guilt gnawed him. He should have insisted she come with them. He should have found another way. As they traveled further from Zithera, signs of the Kryn's collapse became evident. Entire fleets of ships went dark, stranded without power. Communication signals ceased, replaced by static. Even the massive orbital stations that once guarded the planet floated silently, abandoned husks adrift in the void. But amid the destruction, there were glimmers of hope. On nearby moons and planets, oppressed populations began to rise up. Without the Kryn's iron grip holding them down, rebellion spread like wildfire. Reports trickled in via intercepted transmissions, former slaves dismantling control centers. sabotaging supply lines, and freeing others still trapped under Kryn rule. It's working, Alex said one evening, reviewing data on the ships. Monitors, their empire is falling apart. We did that. Ryan stared out the viewport, watching distant stars flicker in the darkness. Yeah, he muttered. But at what cost? Emma glanced at him, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. All those people, the ones who suffered because of the Kryn. How many lives did we ruin trying to save them? How many died because of what we did? Emma shook her head. You didn't ruin anything. You gave them a chance to fight back. To live free. Isn't that worth it? Is it? Ryan shot back, his voice rising slightly. We destroyed an entire civilization, Emma. Does that make us any better than them? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Alex shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Emma opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure of what to say. Days turned into weeks as they journeyed back toward Earth. Along the way, they encountered remnants of the Kryn fleet, scattered and disorganized. Most ships ignored them, too focused on survival to care about a single human vessel. Others attacked, driven by desperation or revenge. Each skirmish left scars, not just on the Wanderer, but on its crew. During one particularly brutal battle, Alex sustained a minor injury while repairing the damaged engine component mid-flight. Emma helped tend to his wound, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. Watching her care for someone else reminded Ryan of how strong she truly was. Despite everything she'd endured, she hadn't given up. You're tougher than I thought, Ryan told her later as they shared a quiet moment in the cockpit. Emma smiled faintly. So are you. Her words brought him little comfort. The weight of their actions still pressed down on him, heavier with each passing day. He wondered if he'd ever find peace or if the memory of Zithera would haunt him forever. Finally, after months of travel, Earth came into view. Its blue-green surface shimmered invitingly against the vast blackness of space. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Ryan felt a flicker of relief. Home. They were almost home. But as they prepared to land, reality set in. Their story wasn't over. Governments, media, and ordinary people would demand answers. What would they say? How could they explain the destruction of an alien empire without being labeled criminals or worse? We'll figure it out, Alex said reassuringly, sensing Ryan's unease. Together. Ryan nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Together, they stepped onto solid ground for the first time in months, greeted by a world unaware of the sacrifices they'd made and the battles yet to come. End of Part 7. Part 8, The Return to Earth, was bittersweet. Ryan, Emma, and Alex landed the Wanderer in a remote desert, far from prying eyes. They knew their arrival would spark questions. Too many questions. And they weren't ready to face the world just yet. For now, they needed time to process everything that had happened. As they stepped out of the ship, the warm desert air hit them like a welcome embrace. It smelled of dust and sagebrush, a stark contrast to the sterile metallic environments they'd endured for so long. The sky above stretched endlessly, dotted with stars that no longer felt quite as distant or mysterious. Earth looked peaceful, untouched by the horrors they had witnessed among the stars. For a moment, none of them spoke. They simply stood there, taking it all in, the silence, the stillness, the sense of being home. Then Emma broke the quiet. What happens now? Ryan glanced at her, his expression unreadable. We tell the truth, he said finally. About the Kryn, about what they did. And about what we did. Alex frowned, adjusting the strap of his backpack. Do you think anyone will believe us? Most people don't even think aliens exist. They'll have to, Ryan replied firmly. Too much is at stake. If we don't warn them, if we don't explain what's out there, they won't be prepared when it comes knocking. Emma nodded slowly, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. But how do we start? Who do we trust? Ryan thought for a moment before answering. We go to someone who has experience with this kind of thing. Someone who knows how to handle classified information without causing panic. They agreed to contact Greg, the man who had helped them early in their journey. He had connections within government circles and seemed genuinely invested in uncovering the truth about extraterrestrial life. If anyone could guide them through the chaos ahead, it was him. Greg met them 2 days later in the same secluded spot where they'd first spoken. His wiry frame and nervous demeanor hadn't changed, but his eyes lit up with excitement when he saw them. "You're alive," he exclaimed, rushing forward. "I wasn't sure if you'd make it back." "We almost didn't," Ryan admitted, shaking Greg's hand. "But we did what we set out to do." Over the next few hours, they told Greg everything: the abduction, the experiments, the rebellion, and the destruction of Zethara's power grid. At times, Greg struggled to keep up, his pen flying across the pages of his notebook as he scribbled notes furiously. When they finished, he leaned back, visibly overwhelmed. "This is incredible," he said finally. "And terrifying. You've basically declared war on an alien empire." "It wasn't supposed to be a declaration of war," Emma interjected softly. "It was survival." Greg nodded, rubbing his temples. "I understand, but you need to realize the Kryn aren't gone." "Not completely. And if they find out who's responsible for crippling their empire, they'll come for us," Ryan finished grimly. "We know. That's why we need your help. We can't fight them alone." Greg hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, he sighed. "All right. I'll see what I can do. But you need to stay hidden until we figure out our next move. The last thing we want is for the wrong people to get wind of this." In the weeks that followed, news of the Kryn's downfall began to spread, not publicly, but among certain circles. Scientists noticed anomalies in deep space communications. Military satellites detected strange energy signatures emanating from Zethara. Rumors circulated about a rogue human vessel that had single-handedly dismantled an advanced alien civilization. Some hailed Ryan, Emma, and Alex as heroes. Others condemned them as reckless vigilantes who had endangered humanity. Governments debated whether to acknowledge the existence of extraterrestrial life or suppress the information entirely. Amid the chaos, one thing became clear: Earth was no longer safe. During this time, Ryan wrestled with his emotions. He had set out to rescue Emma, but along the way, he had become something else: a warrior, a destroyer, a symbol of defiance against tyranny. Yet the cost weighed heavily on him. Zoe's sacrifice haunted his dreams. The faces of enslaved beings flashed in his mind whenever he closed his eyes. He wondered if he had crossed a line, if revenge had consumed him more than justice. Emma noticed his struggle and confronted him one evening as they sat outside under the stars. "You saved me," she said quietly. "And you gave hope to millions of others. Don't forget that." "I destroyed an entire empire," Ryan countered, his voice thick with emotion. "Doesn't that make me just as bad as them?" "No," Emma replied firmly. "You fought for freedom. They fought for control. There's a difference." Her words offered some comfort, but Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that their actions had set something irreversible into motion. The universe was vast and unpredictable, and humanity was woefully unprepared for what lay beyond its borders. Months passed, and life began to settle into a fragile new normal. Greg worked tirelessly to prepare Earth for the possibility of retaliation from the Kryn or other alien civilizations. Ryan, Emma, and Alex stayed underground, helping however they could while avoiding public attention. They shared their knowledge with scientists, engineers, and military strategists, hoping to give humanity a fighting chance. One night, as Ryan gazed up at the stars, Alex joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "You ever wonder what's out there?" Alex asked, nodding toward the sky. All the time, Ryan replied. And I'm scared of the answer, Alex chuckled softly. Me too, but hey, at least we're not alone anymore. Ryan smiled faintly, though his thoughts remained somber. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galactic arena, and those steps had been bloody. Would they rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would they falter under the weight of their own fears? Only time would tell. In the end, Ryan realized that their journey wasn't just about saving Emma or defeating the Kryn. It was about choices, the ones they made, the ones they regretted, and the ones that shaped the future. As he looked up at the endless expanse of stars, he felt a strange mix of hope and dread. The universe was beautiful, yes, but it was also dangerous. And humanity would have to learn to navigate both sides if it hoped to survive, for better or worse. Ryan and his companions had ignited a spark. Whether it led to light or darkness remained to be seen. End of Part 8.